Okay, I want to welcome our audience. Welcome to the news section of Ready, Set, Gemini. And I am your host, Dan Mora, and directly across from me is my co-host.
Hey, everybody. Frank Smithson here.
Thank you for joining us. As always, we love feedback. Please comment in the comment section of this show, and we're looking for future show ideas. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment. Frank, how you doing today, bud?
Doing pretty good. Had a very productive weekend in terms of enjoying life.
Yeah.
Yep. Went out to Great America. That park is, I think, sold now, and they're going to close it down.
Yeah.
It's worth a lot more money for homes than it is for a theme park, I guess.
End of an era, man. I used to go there for sure.
Yeah.
The Demon.
Yeah, the Demon is still there. And let me tell you, being a 6 foot tall individual, it's not made for me. It was the only ride where when you pulled the harness down, it compressed my shoulders down and my whole back, like before we even took off, was in pain. I was like, this is not going to be good.
Is the Grizzly still there?
Yeah, and that was one that always created pain even when you were young, so we didn't go on that one at all.
Oh.
But they have a new one, which is completely amazing. It's called the Gold Striker. So it's a wooden coaster. It's kind of like minor themed. It does not go upside down, and it is by far the best roller coaster I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
Like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like,
wow.
it was an adrenaline ride. It's pretty cool.
We saw the Elvis movie, wife and I.
Okay.
It was really good. It was really good.
Nice.
Really, really, really good.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. And
the whole
great
music history and the whole music influence really came out. It was very good.
Who played him?
I have no idea who the guy is. Yeah.
Okay.
New young guy. Just did fantastic though. Really, really.
Was he like an impersonator type, or he looked like Elvis, or was it?
I mean, yeah, in the movie, they hooked him up, gave him all the. Did a fantastic job. It was amazing.
Nice.
It was really good.
Then we got to go do some prep for duck hunting.
That's right. We got to shoot Saturday
pretty fun.
morning. Yeah.
And we're both like super good.
We are not good at all. We need lots more practice.
For sure.
It's good that we got out so early though.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm thinking of like practicing for duck hunting. We do it because there's like an ethical responsibility to make sure that when you're out there, you know, you want to dispatch that animal without any suffering, right? And if you're a bad shot, there's a possibility that won't happen. So it's kind of funny, today's topic, right? We're talking about ethics in work comp. It seems to be something we talk about often.
Well, yeah, there's some cases. Today we're going to talk a little bit about work comp fraud. We're going to talk about a little bias in workers' compensation. This is a fun, I think, audience-worthy topic. People, I think these things are a little taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
And we feel, hey, it's in the news cycle. So yeah, what was it last week? I think it was early last week. There was a conviction. An attorney convicted and is going to face up to 5 years.
Okay.
For a capping ring, where an injured worker gets referred and gets shuffled through preferred vendors and such, and that's blatantly not okay. And we have several cases here, or several situations and cases, one all the way back in 2014 is not really that long ago, where people are getting pinched, for violating the law.
When we say the law, 139.32.
Yeah, I have it listed right there.
Yeah, it is unlawful for an interesting party to offer, deliver, receive, or accept any rebate, refund, commission, preference, patronage, dividend, discount, or other consideration, whether in the form of money or otherwise, as compensation or inducement to refer a person for services.
Yeah. Kickbacks.
Yeah. Specifically with like taking an injured worker and funneling them over to a law firm to then try a work comp case.
Right. And this is insurance fraud. The insurance industry, the Department of Insurance has an investigative arm. And they don't have a law enforcement, like guns arm for the Department of Insurance, but they do have an investigative arm. And this is we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a really good place to start is maybe how is workers' compensation different than other industries in this regard? And I think it's pretty, it's interesting, but really the carve out, it's an administrative law that is carved out of the civil litigation area of law. I always like to think of workers' compensation as the cousin, or the second cousin, maybe first removed from civil litigation type of law.
Sure.
And so it's administrative law, and how would I say this? It's different because it is intended to deliver benefits. That's the whole goal, is to deliver benefits. There is a right for the defendant, the employer and the insurance company to challenge the claimed benefits, the claimed injury of an injured worker. And so it has this system, this entire system, this administrative law system. And an interesting question is, is it easy to commit insurance fraud in workers' compensation?
That's a good question too. I want to go back to your, how is work comp ethics different than the ethics of other industries? The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of like ethics violations and something that's kind of similar is in the pharmaceutical industry. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's like 15 years ago or whatever, where, these salespeople in pharmaceuticals would go to the doctors and schmooze them, wine and dine them, to get them to purchase their prescription over a competitor. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting in that industry is you have an immediate direct impact to the patient. So prescription A, prescription B, sorry, you're getting A because I get more money for that as a doctor. Immediate impact on the patient. Yeah. In workers' compensation, it's a little bit different. Let's say it's like copy service type work, mm-hmm. and there's a bunch of frivolous ordering that's going on. In addition, the records that are necessary to try the case are also being requested, mm-hmm. right? So what you have is this big inflation of cash that's going to the insurance companies, and they have to take it. But guess what? That injured worker is still getting the treatment that they need based on the records that are actually valuable. Mm-hmm. So then when the insurance company has all this extra inflated cost, then it goes back over to the employer. And what you're doing is you're slowly draining money out of the system, which is impacting all injured workers. Right. So in our system, it's kind of difficult to see like the immediate impact like you may in another industry. And that maybe is due to the nature of like the insurance company being responsible for payment versus direct payment. So,
right. I think that actually one of the articles that we read in research leading up to this, it was a defense attorney out of San Jose that made that exact point. That these things, usually you can't catch them. They're just the way that the system operates. You can't catch these things during the case. And that makes it more difficult for the accountability, really, on these types of.
Yeah. So how easy is it to commit fraud? It seems like it's pretty easy. Like you can get away with it. In fact, there's other cases that are out there that came same type of capping type situation, where in Orange County they were going to do some prosecution and it fell through. There's like a lack of evidence, which would make sense. It's very difficult to prosecute in a way. If you're a civil firm, right, and you're getting injured workers that are coming to you seeking legal advice, then you legally have the right to say, hey, I'm going to refer this out to a work comp attorney. Mm-hmm. And if you're a copy service, you legally have a right to go to a work comp attorney and say, hey, let me get your records for you so you can try your law. So there's two legal paths, only when there's like cahoots. Yeah. And then there's directing. But how do you prove that?
Money trail for sure. Capping is really that's how they do it.
It's the money trail.
But easy. I mean, we talked about this before. Like murder is easy.
Sure.
Committing a crime theoretically is easy.
Yeah.
But what happens after that, the enforcement, and the judicial process is definitely not easy or fast by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah.
So deterrence is like one thing. If you're thinking of like murder, like do people not commit murder because they don't want to get in trouble?
Yeah.
But there's also like, there's like just evil people out there and there's good people out there. I'm just trying to think like in the work comp industry, like it's the same spread of the population, right?
Right.
So there's only a few bad players, but like
the way I look at law in general, there's it's gray. It's less gray, or it's more gray than people kind of give it credit for. They think black and white, and there are some of that. There's shall and will do, shall do. Then there's subjective words like can and if. So that creates this like gray area for judges and prosecutors to, define.
Yeah, this is the spirit of the law.
Mm-hmm.
So you can write a law, right? If you're working with multiple other people that are trying to change law,
Mm-hmm.
and you collectively communicate, you create a body of understanding, and then you write the words that is then going to like define what you were trying to communicate in spirit, but that's not the case, right? Like this whole entire refer a person for services, like Gemini, we take that inducement clause and we kind of we understand the spirit of where it came from. So we go deeper and say it's not just about the refer a person for services, it's anything. Like paying, for example, like a case management system into another law office in exchange for records, like that's not a person for services, but we still don't believe that is like an ethical thing to do. So we've like, we believe this is a little bit,
well, there's
gray.
What's the line between gratuity and inducement? And I recall reading one of these cases that we researched back in the day, and that was the defense that this person gave was that they used these vendors out of gratuity, and or the vendor paid them back by providing services in gratuity. I think the case that just came down is a little bit. I mean, there's then money exchanges and that obviously that is a clear line right there,
and it's a very big one too, right?
But when we're talking about the liberal, or I should say conservative interpretation of 139.32, and us playing on that conservative side, we still do. We still have gratuity to our clients, and we have to make a determination on how far we can go. In general, I think, and I mean this is a personal statement. I feel like that this 139.32 doesn't go far enough. It really says specifically to refer a person for services. And for example, SCIF, State Compensation Insurance Fund, they're a government, pseudo-government entity, and they are not allowed to accept gratuity at all for anything. No meetings, no lunches paid for, nothing.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because drawing that line, this is the question: how do you define what is illegal?
Right.
Right. And with the law being as gray as it is,
it's hard to do.
It's hard to do.
Yeah. That's why we have judges. That's why we have a judicial system. I think we could armchair quarterback this, but we also got to kind of trust the system. And there's, I have a big critique of the system in general to the enforcement of how does this happen? How can we even have this conversation of why is it so easy, or is it easy to commit insurance fraud and workers compensation? Well, what what has happened is that the complexity of our industry creates dark corners, and people can hide in them.
Agreed, for sure. I'm so that's me making the assumption of the motive, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we really know? Like, these people that are taking these decisions, maybe they're reading the law and they think they can live within its means.
Yeah, I think there's a degree of folks that there's no malice. I think there's a degree of folks that play on the entrepreneurial side, the more liberal side of that gray area, and there's no malice.
So, like, let's talk about how do you define what is illegal. So if I take an attorney out to lunch at In-N-Out Burger and have a conversation with them about our business and what we can offer, is that saying thanks?
The size of the gratuity plays a huge factor in all of this.
Gotcha.
Right?
So if I go out and I go to Vegas and I buy a $300 a la carte Wagyu cut of beef for an attorney to say thanks, is that where's the level, right?
If I think you get into the hundreds of thousands, and that's when it draws attention. But it could be just as, I don't know, subtle as $300 steak.
I mean, okay, so $140 a month is the license cost for Maris case. And if I have a 3-person firm, an attorney, 2 paralegals, and I pay the entire cost of that in exchange for records, is that?
Some people would say yes, and some people would say no. And if you're asking me, it's a tough question, because I read 139.32 again, and I feel like we took a hard line on this, but we really almost discounted the last 5 words: refer a person for services. Mm-hmm. And we said, you know what, we're just going to kind of ignore that, and we're going to take this hard line on this conservative perspective on it's unlawful to provide an inducement. And we kind of have to make the judgment of where does it become from a thank you for your time, for listening to me because I have something of value to give you, number one, or number two, thank you for the work that you've been giving us. We really do appreciate that. Yeah. And the line then goes from, okay, I bought you a Ferrari or even
a vacation.
It doesn't even need to be that. Let's just say I got you Amazon gift cards, $100 Amazon gift card, and that equals a certain amount of work.
Yeah.
That's the line that we have taken. If you really have a this for that, if it's, I give you an Amazon gift card and you give me so many work orders, that's for Gemini, that's where we've drawn the line. It's just not, we can't quantify. You quantify, I think that's drawing a line, personally.
Well, that definitely it escalates the whole entire inducement issue, because now you're getting direct impact where records can now be ordered frivolously just for the kickback.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. So have you been, tell us a story about when you've been approached with something inappropriate.
Oh, well, with the specific attorneys, I've had them ask blatantly, you should give me money for every request that I go through. So wow. we spent 2 days auditing a law firm, myself and Brian Milanese of Maris Case, actually, when he was working for us, and we did a great job. We both kind of split up. We talked to all the different individual people, trying to get an understanding of how they use their current systems. Mm-hmm. And if they were to switch to Gemini, how could we save them through process, right? Our processes can create additional value. And so we were super fired up. we went back to the attorney and we're like, we're going to save you $30,000 a year over your current process, thinking like, how is this person going to say no? And then the very next question out of their mouth was, how much money are you going to give me per request?
Wow.
And it just ended the conversation. It's like, sorry, we can't do that. That's not legal.
Yeah.
I'd recommend against it. And
that's pretty blatant. Like the situation, I had one situation where the attorney asked if we would, assumed that we would do all of their civil litigation photocopy for free. And my response was, I said, that's sounds like a situation that is advantageous for you, and you should probably stick with that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem letting them know, like, hey, we would interpret that as not above board, even if it's not like illegal by definition, because refer a person for services, we're taking the ethical stance, and we understand that the spirit of the law was really to try to like make the system work to support injured workers.
Right. I think that the point could be made that you made it. You said it exactly, that the our client would be making, if they make the decision that based on those gratuities, then that's where we're a little uncomfortable. I think, I feel that way.
Yeah. How well do we know clients and their activities? I think this is an interesting topic. So this individual that was convicted recently is a client of ours. And at the time that they were charged, it was known in the industry. They were working with a different copy service. And I think it just makes sense. Like, hey, I'm like in the limelight. I need to go where I can kind of like go under the radar. And who are those people? Well, Gemini's got like ethics, experience, results as their tagline, and we're pushing this concept of ethics.
Our reputation was known as a squeaky clean copy service. We play on the conservative side of that gray area.
Yeah, exactly.
And this attorney chose to come to us specifically to literally help their reputation to some degree.
I just want to put it out there. I think like, if there's bad players out there and we have an opportunity to take bad players and like show them a different path forward to be able to make them successful without taking those negative routes, come on over. Like we can show you the happy path.
Yeah. We're innocent until proven guilty. That's not our area to judge what you did with your previous vendor. I mean, that's just not, we have a way that we do business, and for sure, I encourage also.
Yeah.
I think that's good. And bad is subjective, right? I mean, we gotta hesitate to label bad, but we can say that this particular client was literally convicted.
Yeah, this one is convicted. So absolutely. So, like, I'm curious what our audience would say. Like, hey, we had an awareness that a person was charged and for working with copy services in a negative way, and then we still decided to allow that client to come and then work for us, which in a way could put us at risk. It could make the investigators want to look into us now for bad practices. I'm wondering what like the perception of our clients and the industry at large has of us taking on a client like that. And then
I mean, we think about that, I think, but at some point we just have to stand on our own convictions. And I mean, I know that even talking about this is not favorable for some people in our industry are going to say, what in the heck are these guys talking about it? And we just have to stand on our own convictions, and whatever happens, let the chips fall.
Bring it forward, like expose this stuff. It's just good for everybody, right?
And it goes to that question: how do we know clients and their activities in this area when it comes to possible shady things? And I don't know. It's a smallish community. It's very relationship based. So you just know.
Yes, you hear rumors. I just had a really good one. I mean, I wonder how many other people are hearing crazy rumors like this. right? Is this stuff just getting, because if I'm hearing it, like I'm sure other people are hearing it, like I'm not the only one that was told this, but there's supposedly like a copy service that has like a grow farm, like for marijuana, and is like somehow funneling, and this is all accusations and hearsay and crazy rumor stuff. Right. But like the fact that rumors exist at all is crazy to me, right? Like copy services throwing parties that cost, $30,000 to say thanks. Where does that money come from? Like we're working in the system and we understand, there's only so much profitability. I mean, until the fee schedule, everybody's been in pain. MedLegal goes out of business. And then all of a sudden there's like this huge amount of cash that like you can go just to have fun.
I mean, profit is profit. We put our profit in
research and
R&D or employee benefits, hiring more employees, whatever. And some people put their profit in
parties,
gratuities like that. Again, that's the whole gratuity thing. Where do you draw the line? Again, we stand on our own convictions.
How much business are we losing because we're not throwing the coolest parties?
There's a percentage, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Not every client is a great client. Some of them are clients that are abusive to our staff are just an absolute no. So that's a completely different example. But if we've fired clients because they were abusive to our staff.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
And not sorry.
Yeah. So speaking of like these, inducements in terms of cash and, big parties, I think it's fair to say that if you behave, okay, hold on, I got to go something different. Okay, let me just bring up this little story that I heard recently. We have an individual that's an owner of a copy service, and he's trying to get talent from another copy service, right? Like employees of another copy service. And he pulls up and he opens his trunk and says, look at this big big stack of cash. Like, you should come work for me. Or like, hey buddy, I got a Tesla that I'm about to, put your name on right now. You ready to work for me? If your method to attract talent is of that nature, what method are you using to attract clients? And if that person that
surprised
said, yes, I'm going to take that cash to come work for you. Like when we talk about like leadership, like you're leading by showing them the example of like, hey, cash is how you earn business, right? Would that not really quickly translate into the actual job?
You're not wrong. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's fair. That's fair. People are people, and their human nature is what it is. The change when they have different audiences. I don't know. It's a good question. We should probably transition to this other topic, and this is bias in workers' compensation. And to me, the key question, I think this is a brilliant question, is at what point does bias become fraud?
Applicant whore, defense whore.
Easy, bro.
I know. It's not my term. Let's just put it out there. This is like an industry term that attorneys have communicated to me, and I'm like communicating back into the world. And there's a very distinct advantage for people to understand the biases that the providers have, so they can help their injured worker
or help their employer.
Yeah, justice is supposed to be blind. I don't know.
So there's obviously some benefit to being biased.
So how do you remove that out of the system is probably the question that would be really great to answer.
Well, I know I've said this several times, but I think that our system is insanely complex. Is number one. It's a problem. And then, if I was king for the day, I love the idea of a secret shopper kind of idea.
Yeah.
I think that would actually be a good way to kind of ferret out these shady areas of the system. Like I mentioned,
an injured worker, it's like not an actual injured worker. It's like a government worker that goes in claiming that they are injured. and then they have to like go see doctors and like see how that
I
pans out.
I think that's how it would operate. Yeah. I don't even know if that's legal, to be honest. I just think
that sounds like entrapment, maybe.
it might be.
Yeah.
It might be. I'm not a lawyer. It's just full disclosure. I'm not advocating for entrapment.
I think every single applicant attorney is like, okay, maybe we shouldn't work for Gemini now. Maybe we got to cut this scene. We'll see where it goes.
No. I think this industry is a hotbed for cost. Cost is probably, if you were to look at like just some really major complaints, high level complaints about California workers' compensation, the cost. Where does that cost come from, Frank? You know, from your perspective, how does this cost? Why is workers' compensation so dang expensive compared to other states?
I definitely feel like all the laws that are passed, there's always like manipulation trying to happen within those laws. Like I think of like the whole IMR process. Mm-hmm. Like it's really not an individual doctor trying to suggest, hey, here's the medical treatment that my patient needs. It's like employers and insurance companies fighting over like
which doctor.
Mm-hmm. And then even then, it doesn't matter. The doctor that goes, if they are not good at writing a report, mm-hmm. like they can understand the patient's needs and say, this is what you should do medically. But if they don't write it down properly, mm-hmm. then it gets objected to. Then it goes into this super expensive system called IMR that's pretty much worthless. I think every attorney can agree with that. Probably defense and applicant, yet it still exists. And more money, you know, IMR. What does it cost to run that system? If you're talking about a prescription for ibuprofen, and then you have like defense attorneys getting paid $300 an hour objecting, and then it goes over to a whole entire copy service company to then go and procure all these records to then help the doctors make decisions and evaluate like the way it was written versus what is reality and all of that cost. So now you're thousands of dollars into this mm-hmm. idea that you can't give someone ibuprofen for a hurt mm-hmm. shoulder.
I think time has what they do, what the knee-jerk reaction is, and whatever. If you're a politician, this is how you address the problem. If you're a politician, there's a problem. I must have a law that addresses that problem, instead of letting the system operate and catch that problem and fix it within the system. They lay more cement. So I mean by the complexity and the size of workers' compensation. Like there's a problem, okay, let's address it. Let's lay more cement. So we say they can't do that. I think what's actually missing, a big part of it is enforcement. There's just, to me, there's a lot of things in the regulatory area and even the labor code area that just enforcement is weak, and it's weak because where do you go? I mean, the workers' compensation doesn't have an investigative arm to it. They have to then bring it up, elevate it to the Department of Insurance. And again, this whole secret shopper thing, it's novel. I mean, maybe it's not novel, but I don't know how you would. Again, I don't know how to fix it per se, but how do you elevate an industry? You know, how
do you elevate the industry? I think that's definitely the right question, and you know, thinking about those things is important. I kind of feel like root cause is not being addressed. Like a lot of the laws come out to treat symptoms, but the root cause is still happening, and all that happens is people try to interpret that law, that gray area, and then they work within its confines, and they just continue to manipulate the systems.
You have so many different stakeholders and players, and they all have an opinion, and so it's the loudest voice that's going to have, that's going to win. In the last several years, last several legislative cycles, it's the loudest voice who has the most power behind their voice that gets their solution, put up. That's not democratic, I don't think, in any way. I think we can go back to
what is money talks with in the U.S. Like, give me examples of where big money doesn't win.
The problem to me is that people fake like it's democratic. We had in 2012 there was a listening tour that was in most people that I've talked to, it was just a sham. That was led up to the legislative package that it came down in August of 2012 that brought us IMR and MPNs, and maybe not MPNs, but it definitely brought us IMR.
The whole it's like laws stacked on top of laws, stacked on top of laws, and then you get more and more complexity. And the people that do the work and have the best opportunity to understand what those things are, like the whole way the system is built, where you have to like go through these like multiple levels of bureaucracy, kind of ruins everything. Yeah. So you can't even like blame a legislator, right? Mm-hmm. Because what else are they legislating? It's not like they only focus on the specific thing. They're like shoved all these different topics mm-hmm. from people, and whoever has more money maybe has more opportunity to get in front of them, so they hear that side of things, but they really don't understand the root cause. But they still have to push forward and make changes. Mm-hmm. They do the best they can.
Yeah. In my opinion, the key to lasting change and to elevate this industry is to have really well-vetted leaders, and leaders that are incredibly, what do you want to call it, altruistic. Mm-hmm. It's super thankless. I've rubbed elbows with several people in the administration, and their job is, the complexity makes it so you almost never see the result of your work. It's glacial, the movement, and something that's not everything. Of course, some things are very quick. But a very strong leader, skill-wise. I'm not saying somebody that is loud, because we've had that in the past.
Sure,
loud leaders are not, necessarily the best leaders. But yeah, I think leadership is required to, if this is ever going to get reeled back in, where the cost ratio, the cost to get an applicant their benefits and their wages, if that cost ratio never goes down, the end result is going to be, I think, insurance control. And that's really, I think, what we have witnessed literally in our time in this industry, my time in this industry, as the cost goes up, the employers are the ones paying the fees, and the costs are too much. And what is the reaction that has happened many times over in the last few years? It's insurance control. Is that justice?
I don't know. I mean, I think of the insurance is fighting for this, only one copy service provider, mm-hmm. right? And, if the copy service provider is altruistic and is blind like justice and is going out there and doing their best to get the records, that's just one company. What if someone else could have got something a little different?
Right.
Now that injured worker wasn't treated fair, even though it's supposed to be
the foundation,
even playing field.
Right. The foundation of justice is an even playing field. I think it's easy to argue that the motive of insurance companies is money. Yeah. Not to get injured workers back, as productive members of society. I think I've heard.
How do you create law to, not just in workers' compensation, but the entire United States, where the interest of people and the environment, the things that really matter, right? That's why you create law. I think we may have already talked about this on another topic, but like there's 40,000 plus laws per year created. Right. Yeah. Can you name me more than 10? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah, totally.
Like people don't even know what the laws are. Yeah. In fact, even in our industry, there's certain
money.
topics that are like
it's just money, man. Money,
not well known.
Money. For years, it all comes back to money.
Yeah.
You know, lobbyists are paid. Lobbyists tell the legislators, what they deem are the facts of a bill or a prop. That's how it goes.
So it's kind of depressing because it's like there is no answers, right? Maybe we can put this out to our people watching this podcast. Like, what can we do different?
Yeah,
like we do need leaders. You suggested we need a strong leader. Who can be that next leader that can like take this industry and help reshape it? Like,
we have to have faith too. And I think faith in humanity means that we do feel that there is a type of leader that can swing the pendulum the other way. Who is it? I don't know. You know, there's a. I mean, if you were to count on your hands, inspirational, altruistic leaders, how many could you count?
not enough.
Right. So
not enough.
But I don't know. I think that there's I just have faith. I don't know. I have faith that even collective voice, I think collective voice is also important, hugely important, and critical. So you got to collect. Those altruistic leaders need to be collecting voices that say this is not justice. This is the wrong path, and we can maybe get the pendulum to swing the other way. Insurance control is I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good. They don't act in a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of times they do. They don't act in the best interest of injured workers. I think that's proven many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, any final thoughts on this topic before we conclude?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like this would have been better to record at the end of the day because now I'm just going to be thinking about how the system needs a lot of improvement for the rest of the day. But I think I really want to hear. I need some interaction from our people out there listening to this. Like, what ideas can we have? And we have a okay voice in the industry. I think we could, prop up some great ideas if they're out there.
Yeah, we could do it on this show. I think, and maybe it would be good to get a lot more interaction with our audience. Yeah, so
let's put it out to copy service owners. Like, what does ethics mean to you? Right? Are you making the right decision by the injured workers? Only you are going to be able to judge yourself, right? Maybe over time, the industry will recognize bad players. But like, you have an opportunity now to think about like what you're doing and how it's impacting the entire ecosystem of workers' comp.
Yeah, I think that goes for our entire ecosystem. That's a great question for all of them.
Yeah, not just copy service providers, but every player. We all have a responsibility, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Frank. That will wrap up our discussion. Again, we'd love to hear from our audience. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment. Again, we're super excited to hear your feedback and ideas on new topics. As always, Frank, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, man. I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.